Welcome to yet another Blizzard lore, Blizzard week, Blizzard event, Blizzard. For those of you not aware, BlizzCon just happened, just finished up, and it's basically going to be a Blizzard lore week. I have a couple of things to say that aren't related to Blizzard, but only a couple. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, and I'm just going to go ahead and answer the questions up front. Yes, I did shave my head for today, so I wanted to be a little more professional looking. I wanted to, try and appear as possible, as good as I can, especially now that I have evolved into my true form as a Star Fox villain. Now, make sure everyone goes and votes. I'm going to leave this poll up during all of Loreweek. There's the vote. Go vote. Make sure you vote. But now, only I have the brains to rule Lilat. Anyways, so I wanted to share a story with you really quick because this amused me greatly. Actually, I wanted to share two stories. Voot, yes. So there I was, destroying everything. Whoops, stay. There we go. And I was going through. So when I go out and about, I have my headphones in a different pair than these actually, and I've always got. I've always got my music playing because I am addicted to my music. I have been for many, many long years. So I'm going through, and it's on random. I didn't select it, but I'm getting a car wash right after I finished all the repairs on the car. The car really needed a car wash, and I promised the car that I would go ahead and take care of it and give it a car wash. So I'm going through the car wash. Now, I kid you not. So it's an automated one with people running it. In other words, the people come out and they go... and they scrub it, and then it goes through, and then there's another one of those things, right? But I'm entering the automated thing. Okay? So this is playing while I am on approach, and I'm not really noticing it. Let me turn it down a lot, because I'm going to turn it up a lot in a moment here. So I'm just walking through, and this song is playing. And by walking through, I mean driving through. And I'm just kind of chilling, and I'm looking at something on my notes and trying to figure out what I'm going to be getting because I'm about to hit the grocery store. And after a few seconds, I enter the car wash. Like, the actual foam starts covering me. And the moment I do, this happens. The timing of it was perfect. It was almost terrifying how perfect the timing was on that. Like, because it starts putting the foam down, and then the wipers come in, and then I'm just enveloped because you can't see anything when you're in there, and then it's just a perfect thing. So I have another little quick story to share. Obviously, I already shared my Canada Dry story, but I also have to share this story. So for those of you not aware, for the last year or so, Mars has been sending out... Whoop, hang on. Nope, stop. Mars has been doing this thing where they've been like, here's our new flavors of M&Ms, you can vote for which one is the winner. Now, yes, Necro. As I was going through, as I was going through, I noticed that, so they had like chili flavored M&Ms, which are actually my favorite of the bunch, and then there was like a honey flavored, and then there was one flavor I never actually got to try. It was the third flavor, and I never actually got to try it. It was called coffee nut flavored, and I kept looking for a copy, and I could never find it. And it was just because I wanted to try it. I'm one of those weird people who tends to think that I actually want, I want to try new things, I want to experiment, and blah blah blah. So I'm going through the grocery stores, and it turns out they have coffee nut flavored M&Ms, which with a big winning flavor. So apparently, coffee was the winner. So Anybody who's watched my show for any length of time knows I have a phrase called coffee. And that phrase means I don't like it, because I don't like coffee. I have also had coffee-flavored beer. If you've watched my Gen Con video, it was disgusting. So I'm going to try this. And it's probably going to be terrible. Oh god, the smell. I can't describe the smell. So, we got multicolored coffee bean things. Oh, there's a third one. There's a third color. It's just brown in here. I could pull one out. Not splitting the bag open anymore. There we go. Yes, the froth of con. So there's our 4 varieties there. Oh, it's so good! Oh my god! Well, I don't have anything to recover with. Except for Dayquil. I'm about ready to take some Dayquil. Just to get that out of my mouth. Oh my god. Blah. Blah. Anyways, welcome to Loreweek. I'm going to go ahead and rush ahead a bit because I've got mostly Blizzard news because BlizzCon was this week. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Andros version of Loreweek. I hope some of you at least get that reference. And if you don't, I am actually just Nornstein Beckler. Which some of you might also not get that reference. Oh my god, that. You know what? No, I'll be right back. Pickle. I'm not sure, Permeus. Okay. I feel better. So what's up, guys? Let's get some background music on. No. We need something more appropriate for BlizzCon week. Okay. So let's talk about a couple of things that are not related to BlizzCon. You know, Zoan, I like how you assume I don't know that. I'm astonished that you assume I don't know that. I can see myself on the screen, first of all. Second of all, this shirt is very uncomfortable, and a shirt I only wear when I'm on here on the green screen. It's the only reason I ever do that. There's no other reason to wear this shirt. It's actually a little too small for me, because I'm a worthless fat ass. Moving on. So, recently, what is the timestamp? 9 p.m., and by 9 p.m. I mean 9 o'clock. Welcome to Daylight Savings Time, those of you who have to suffer through it, just like I do. Nintendo announced a game that is probably not coming out in the United States, go figure, or anywhere outside of Japan, called Miitopia. It is a game where you actually get to play as your Mii. You design a Mii and whatnot for it. But otherwise, it is a JRPG. And, Tom, you realize this is... I mean, do I have to explain why I own this kind of a shirt, Tom? I saw this, in the clothing store, and I had to buy it because it's like the perfect shade for the green screen. Anyways, um, uh, I'm not that broad. I mean, okay, I'm a little broad. Miitopia. It's a like I said, it's a JRPG, and you're going after people who've stolen people's faces and all that fun stuff. It actually looks like a fairly fun game. The only thing I have to share about it is that it feels like they're desperately trying to keep the me thing relevant. And I find myself wondering if that's why that game is not coming out outside of Japan, because to my personal knowledge, no one outside of Japan really cares about the me thing. And I'm not sure, how many people agree with that or disagree with that, but I personally don't know anybody who actually likes the me thing. You know what, actually, I need to adjust something really quick. There we go. So I have no idea why they're pushing that. It does look like an entertaining game, if a fairly generic game. Hello, Corwin. Yeah, I'm not sure the me was ever relevant, to be completely honest with you. You know what I should do? I should make gloves, because I've got spare green screen material, which is what I made the sleeve for the chair with. Because I could just have, like, something to cover my hand, so I could be doing this kind of stuff, and you just suddenly it would cover my face. Anyways, oh, that sucks, Permeus. So that's not until, God, it's not until next Tuesday. Whatever. That sucks. So yeah, I just the thing I wanted to talk about though is the idea of should all games be localized. I know that's a weird direction to go in with that, but I was thinking about it because sometimes yes, this here I'll show you guys here. You guys don't believe me. Why is everyone about the green screen? Here, look. You see my chair? See my chair here? Got a nice custom sewn sleeve thing for the back of it. Anyways, as I was saying, obviously everyone's culture is different, and understanding and accepting that is part of the thing. And there's always going to be some niche, regardless. Like, there are people here in the United States who like the me thing and would want Miitopia. I mean, I could put 100% certainty on that. The question is, should those things be localized? Should the time and effort and work be done in order to localize everything? Every game in, every game from Japan, every game from the States, every game from the Middle East, every game from Europe, every game from East Europe. Should every game be localized? And that's a good question, and I don't actually know the answer to that, which is why I present it to you as a question as to whether or not that kind of thing should be done. Now, obviously, in an ideal world, the answer is absolutely yes. But an ideal world is one in which we don't have limited resources. Because that's kind of one of the things that's required for an ideal world. So, in order to do that, we'd have to be in a situation where money was not a part of the equation. Because in my opinion, if money was not a part of the equation, then this is not a question, it's not a dilemma. Absolutely, yes. If money is a part of the equation, that gets a lot trickier. But this also ties into another thing. When should things be localized? Let me give you a direct example of what I'm talking about. Dragon Quest. Now, for some reason, Square Enix of Japan had got it into their heads that the United States does not like Dragon Quest because the US is not as big a fan base of Dragon Quest as Japan is. Ergo, there's no reason to localize certain Dragon Quest games over here because, we don't like them as much. Now, thankfully, certain people and certain individuals involved at Square Enix have championed the idea of localizing outside of Japan for the Dragon Quest series. Thank God. And that has turned out to be a thing, because there is a fairly large fan base here in the States. Dragon Quest IX, to use a direct example, actually sold really, really well here in the States. I mean, we have a fan base, they do make money off of it, it is a net profit for them. But we can only say that after the fact. We can only prove that because the game did come out, and now we can actually show the sales of it, right? But how many other games, and Square Enix is not the only person this... Excuse me, there's so many companies, and Japan is not the only target for this, who say, well, no, there's no reason to localize, there's no profit in it. And now, I know Square Enix personally the most because there's a lot of games in Square Enix that have not come out here. I mean, yeah, Takoida points out Front Mission is a good example of that. Yeah, King Bubble, I could understand that. I mean, after a certain point, there's only so much you can do with that. And I'm not sure what to even say, but hang on just a second. And yeah, what Luxia says is also part of this. And this goes back to things that I've talked about 1,000 times. It's so funny how many topics I bring up all boil back to that quarterly perspective, which boils back to the undermarket situation that's going on under that. There's so many things. By the way, make sure you vote. Thank you, Lurker, for continuing to post that. There's so many things that are a consequence of... I know we're not at Halloween, but let me speak bluntly for just a moment here. Absolutely, Necro. Absolutely. I mean, FF5 is all I have to say about that. Let me speak bluntly for just a moment. The economy is something that, for many reasons, should exist. And I know that probably sounds weird, because I've spoken so many times against greed, and against how many ways that money focus ruins society, ruins, as I like to say, the substance of the universe. But it's not money I am against. I tried to make this point so clear, and so many people have misunderstood this over my years, my many, many years. I'm not against money. I'm not against the economy. I'm not against the concept of currency. I understand its use and purpose. I am one of those people that argues that the Federation should have an economy. There's actually a great episode that really highlights that. It's a DS9 episode called Faith, Treachery, and the Great River. It's a great episode. I highly recommend it. And in that episode, it's emphasized how currency is not necessarily a bad thing because, as Raskar points out, currency is nothing more than a unit of exchange for trade. It is a tool that should be utilized to facilitate trade. And I am hugely in favor of trade, because trade is one of the most common understanding concepts of humankind. It's a great way for interaction, for respect, for mutual understanding and cooperation and diplomacy and all sorts of other things that I am in favor of. What I am against is greed, especially naked greed. But I've talked about naked greed many, many times, and I've even defined naked greed as separate from greed. So this is just yet another consequence of greed, and not even necessarily on the companies that are actually doing these localizations. The people who are basically moving the money around underneath the corporations that have to decide if it's financially feasible in order to do the localizations. They have to decide for themselves. It's not really the question. This is the really screwed up part. It's not a question of will it sell. It's not a question of will they turn a profit or go into the black. That's not the question they have to ask themselves. They have to ask themselves, will it sell enough? Because it's not about, will we be able to put out a sufficient amount of units in order to make back the money we said, which is what we refer to as a profit, a net profit. It's all about, well, this is the number we need to hit because blah, because of those underpinnings I've already talked about. Therefore, does this localization, is this something that can hit that? Or, and this is another way this tends to happen, do we have enough other projects that are making enough money that we can afford the loss of merely making a profit? And of course, there's a lot of cultural problems. There's a lot of legal problems. Different countries have different laws. It's one of the reasons localizations are such an issue sometimes. Sometimes things have to be censored. That's actually not the right application of that word. It's more like they have to be adjusted for the localization, because there are different cultures, different laws, and different trade. I don't know the right word to use here. Trade standards, I think is the word I'll use there. So, anyways, moving on. Yeah, the Tomb Raider is one of the most obvious and blatant examples. Let's move on. Let's move on. I don't want to get into another speechify. I speechify too much on my show. I'm sorry, guys. I feel like Patrick Stewart here. Make sure you're voting, by the way. Where was I going? So there's a streamer out there, and as you, so those of you may know, I have a little bit of a, self-esteem issue. I'm not shy about that. I try to cover it up with humor. But one thing that does get to me every now and again is someone will point out another streamer, and they will say, here's this other streamer, and they've got 3,000 viewers, and they're a partner. And then I look at them, and I'm just like, I didn't see a question from you, Magister. Agreed, Necro, in all honesty. I even recognized that quote, Little Billy. I even recognized that. It's a terrible episode, but yeah. Anyways, and Troy's the one who said it. So, every now and again I look at other streamers, and I just get kind of depressed, because, as I mentioned recently, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, I saw another streamer who was a disgusting human being, and I say that with no joking, with no exaggeration. It was someone who I feel is making the world worse by their existence. And he was someone who was a ban dodger, first of all, and someone who had 4,000 views when I looked at him, and was vile, and unprofessional, and didn't have any kind of effects or anything whatsoever, and he was just screaming and yelling and hollering, and I don't even remember the game he was playing. I think it was CSGO, I'm not sure. No, it wasn't. He wasn't playing something that popular. It was something unpopular. And, yeah. But recently, I did see someone, I want to mention him, his Twitch name is, I believe, Squirrel. And he's actually kind of cool. And I actually kind of liked that, because he's an older gentleman, he's older than me, like 20 years older than me, something like that. And he streams farm simulator games. And he has a fairly large following. And I like that. I like the fact that there's a fairly large following. He has a partnership. He's got a few thousand followers who watch him regularly. And he streams like the farm simulator games, which are up to their 17th iteration, by the way, if you believe that. And I like that. It was just nice. I don't have anything to share here. I don't have any big, story or any big thing. I just want to share the fact that it's cool that some 50-year-old guy can go stream farming simulator and bake a partnership. And he's just cool. I've actually watched his stream. He's actually much harsher than I am on his chat. You start cussing or whatever on his chat, he's out. But it's nice, and I actually watched a bit of his streams one day when he came across my radar. That's it. I just wanted to share that. Yeah, Necro. If you remember Necro, or maybe you don't, you might not have been watching me many, many years ago. Like, oh, that might be Lurker. I don't actually know. I don't know. I'm not a farming simulator fan. A little over 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago now, I put out a video saying, do you want me to invent a persona for my show? And the universal response was no. Because I don't have a persona. What you're seeing is, I call myself the lore runner, but it's me. I'm just talking to you as if I was talking to someone who was sitting in front of me. Or if I talk to my friends, or I talk to my family. This is just me. So you're right, I don't do the persona thing, and I don't intend to. I didn't like Persona 4, so why would I... No, I joke. But yeah, no, I don't... well, Lord knows I put on a mask just like absolutely everyone does. This mask is as much me as you're gonna get. So, just wanted to share that. Another thing, real quick. I meant to talk about this last week, and I completely spaced. So this is just something that's actually last week's news. For those of you not aware, Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 are coming out on the PS4. And I didn't really discuss that, even though there is a little bit to discuss there. Oh, wait, hang on. You want me to be Batman? All right, hang on. This is Batman, right? The joke, if you can't tell, is this is Deadpool. I know it's different colored. This is a birthday gift from my sis. Yes, I am actually a floating head in real life. Hello, Emperor Palpatine. You almost won the election recently, but anyways. So here's the thing. On the one hand, That's an awesome thing, because it now means, as of that being released, the entirety of Kingdom Hearts will be available on a single console, and that's awesome. How's the music volume, by the way? Curiosity. And as Roxymus points out, I was going to get to that later, but we'll go ahead and talk about it now. It's not just a port. If I may be completely blunt, one of the things I have hated most about Square Enix since about the PS1 era, I'm sure a lot of you know what games I'm referring to, Square Enix has really, really bad ports. They've had a history of really, really bad ports. However, they've had a couple recently which are good. FF10 and 10.2, done on the PS4 and the PC, were actually pretty good ports. And actually, King Bubble, you'd be surprised. I'm a very sociable person in real life. I'm the kind of person who starts talking to the person who's checking me out at the grocery store and just chatting with them and being like, hey, what's up? And if they ask a question like, oh, why are you getting that? I will give them a full answer. I've learned to summarize a little bit because I don't have 20 minutes to explain why I enjoy watermelon to someone. Anyways, let's get back to Kingdom Hearts. So, hello, God, I can barely read that. Sam3G, what's up? So yeah, I'm glad that they're doing what looks like a proper port. I'm glad it's all on one system. I think it's awesome, and it's finally answering what, in my opinion, has been the biggest negative to the Kingdom Hearts series, and that's that it hasn't all been available on one system. I can't even count how many times I've heard someone say, "Hey, I would love to get into the Kingdom Hearts series, or I at least am interested in getting into the Kingdom Hearts series, but I can't because I don't have a GBA and a PS2 and a phone and all the other 3DS and a PSP." We got to the point where you only needed a PS3 and a 3DS, and then and a phone or a browser, and then we got to the point where you only need a PS3 or a PS4, and now we're getting to the point where you only need a PS4, and that'll be basically everything. You still don't actually get the Unchained stuff, and you don't get the browser stuff, but you're getting the vast majority of the Kingdom Hearts series on one system, and that's awesome. I do think it's unfortunate that it's on the PS4 and nothing else. I think it would be awesome if that... And now, if it's coming out on Xbone, please feel free to correct me. I haven't heard anything, about it coming out on the Xbone. I think it would be even more awesome if it would be coming out on the PC. Speaking of which, one of the recent upcoming Kingdom Hearts games, I forget which, please help me on this, Roxymus, is actually going to have nice King Bubble, a digital release, which, to my knowledge, is the first, not counting the browser and stuff, is the first digital-only release possibility of a game in the Kingdom Hearts series. It's the first time they're doing digital distribution. And if you don't understand why that's significant, it's significant because there have been legal and binding agreements that have prevented the Kingdom Hearts series from digital distribution for a long time. It's 2.8, thank you. The fact that that is finally becoming a thing means it's possible that that digital distribution thing is finally going away, and it means that the possibility of a PC port has just increased. The FF10 thing has come up, and the Kingdom Hearts thing has come up. This is actually 3 points of evidence now. The first just being the fact that Square Enix is pushing a lot of their games to the PC lately. So that's 3 points of evidence indicating that it is, at the very least, at this point, I would say likely, the Kingdom Hearts series will come out on the PC, which is awesome, and would further cement the ability of being able to play the series on whatever. Because if you have the PS4 or a PC, at that point, you're covering well over half of the entire market as far as availability with regards to being able to play the Kingdom Hearts series in its entirety, and that is awesome. I do have to be honest with you guys, though. I think it's scummy that the PS4 is not backwards compatible. I do. I'm sorry. I don't like the absence of backwards compatibility. I don't. I think the absence of backwards compatibility causes many issues. I think the absence of backwards compatibility is something that companies artificially do in order to encourage someone to pick up the new system and abandon the old. I think that's scummy. Just my opinion. And I also personally tend to think that there are some economic problems with doing that as well, but I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole other discussion. So, in short, this port is great, But it wouldn't be necessary if the PS4 was backwards compatible one step. And it only needs to really be one step backwards. Nintendo has proven that. GBA could play GB, DS could play GBA, 3DS can play DS. Bam, bam, bam. One step backwards compatibility. It's worked out great. I don't know, Necro. I don't own a PS4. While we're at it, the Wii could play GameCube and the Wii U could play Wii. Another example of backwards compatibility. I hate to use Nintendo, but they're the ones who've done that fairly consistently. The PS3 originally had the ability to play PS2, and then they discontinued that model. Props to you if you actually happen to have one of those. My friend Pax actually has a PS3 that can still play PS2 stuff. Now, in the interest of fairness, I do also understand that backwards compatibility does have its own issues. For those of you not aware, the PS3's framework, I'm going to use that word, is garbage. No offense to PS3, I've got one right here. But its overall system of operation is disgustingly bad. And the PS4's is a lot better. And so, you know, emulating the PS3 on the PS4 is actually more of an issue than it sounds like. So, fairness. But again, that doesn't really give Sony any points, because it's still Sony's problem for making the PS3 a mess with regards to its code. But anyways, moving on. All right. God, we've already talked for 30 minutes. I haven't even touched Blizzard. Let's talk about Blizzard stuff. Woo, Blizzard stuff. Woo, Blizzard stuff. Architecture. That's the word I was looking for. Depends if it's done well. But, yeah. If they did Darkrai, I haven't heard of it. The version, the PS3 that my friend Pax owns, that is PS2 backwards compatible, actually does still run PS2 games. So yes, I wasn't just doing this for jokes. This is a very vague and geeky and stupid somber reference. Boop. But let's start actually with Heroes of the Storm for no reason, really. I'm just going down the list. So there's a lot of things I got to talk about. I've got a huge amount of stuff. So this is just going to be the BlizzCon section. No, I have not, Little Billy. So first and indeed foremost, I'd like to say that it's awesome that they're adding more lore, more story to Heroes of the Storm, which is amazing. The new... I really... The first thing I want to talk about is one of several reasons why I like Heroes of the Storm, despite generally not liking MOBA games in general. You know, I didn't like League of Legends. I didn't like Dota 2. I didn't like Strife. I can't remember all of them. There's like a couple weeks where I just went through them quite a bit. And I really don't care for it. The PvP aspect of it doesn't appeal to me. I've talked about this before. I've often felt like in a MOBA, it feels like a deathmatch. It feels like I'm just playing Unreal Tournament again. And I've had my fill of deathmatch. I've been playing deathmatch since, like, Quake. So, you know, I want something a little bit more. Heroes of the Storm adds variety to it, adds different, you know, the map scenarios, basically, with their custom objectives. It's got the team play aspect. You know, teamwork is much, much more emphasized in Heroes of the Storm. It takes away certain things that I hated in MOBAs, like sniping for kills. I loathed that. And so it's got the shared experience thing, and a bunch of other things. I've talked about this before. But the one thing that rises to above the rest for me is that Heroes of the Storm has been trying new things. Now, I have a feeling I'm going to be bashed by this by someone who knows more than I do about Dota 2 or LoL or whatever. But I have seen Heroes of the Storm try really new, interesting things with their games, with their heroes, and with their maps. And I like that. I like that they're stretching the boundaries of what a MOBA is, rather than just, here's a new move set and you have to be skilled to use it. Here's stuff that involves, you know, really going through and actually changing the very method by which you play the game. I love that. I love the variance. I love the change. I love the new options. And this is very well described by our new things. Oh, I have seen this. Never mind, Little Billy, but thank you. I don't have $120 to drop on it, though. So Varian is someone who is basically going to be effectively three different characters in one because of his different method of play. You can actually play that one guy and play a tank, an arms, or fury. I like that. Yeah, that would be pretty cool, King Bubble. Although we're kind of already going that way. This is not a new shirt, by the way. I've had this since I lived in Indiana. I just don't wear it that often on the show because it's extremely uncomfortable. This is so uncomfortable. You have no idea, guys. So hope you're appreciating it. But that's not the one that really is super awesome. The one that's really super awesome is Ragnaros, who, in addition to having his usual moveset, has the ability to take over a keep and turn into a raid boss to help with a push or defend against a push, or just because it's fun. That is what I mean by introducing new mechanics. That's what I mean by pushing the envelope. The fact that he can go and completely change into something else and be something else, and that's awesome. Yeah, I'm going to take it off. Actually, fun fact, just real quick aside, you can actually see my tan line there, because this shirt doesn't go all the way down my shirt, so you can see the difference between my upper arm and lower arm. Anyways, well, it's interesting you say that, Necro. Yeah, Ragnaros sounds really, really cool. So hang on, I actually have a video for you, and then I'll talk about the lore implications. Let me cut off the music. Let me cut off this real quick, and let me pull up. I've only got a couple of videos, but I wanted to share this one with you. How's the volume? I know it's quiet right now.
A king has fallen. A father. A friend. A warrior.
This is really cool.
Defender of the Alliance. He was a beacon of hope. A leader without measure. A man who would never accept defeat. He was our shield against the storm.
Yes, Deutsch. That's kind of the point. Yeah, I'll talk about the lore implications in a second. Note how he unhesitatingly goes towards the source of the problem, by the way, the moment he wakes up in this new world. Notice that's the only thing he visually acknowledged was the helmet, by the way. The thing that he would recognize. Yeah, that was Nova's gun.
Wherever he has gone, Varian Rin will remain a hero. Always.
Yeah, by the way, I'm surprised nobody pointed it out until Venters did. Ragnaros is also dead. As in permanently dead. So you want my honest opinion. That's probably why you're here. Here, I'll just get a cool shot here really quick. There we go. You want my honest opinion? I think they made Heroes of the Storm with no intention to develop a story to it. And that would explain a lot of the inconsistencies in the current lore of Heroes of the Storm. And then somewhere along the line, they were like, hang on. And kind of like Overwatch, the story sort of developed after the fact, rather than writing the story before they started making the game. And so the idea here being that they started to say, well, why don't we try and actually make this a real nexus, a real connection point? And we've already seen hints of that in the flavor lore they've presented with other dimensions, other timelines and possibilities coming out in the skins. Now note that those alternate dimensions are not just for fluff and flavor. A lot of them are self-consistent. We have several people, there's several distinct alternate dimensions that we see that several heroes coincide within. And we've seen several aspects of it. There's the Star Empire one, there's the alternate Azeroth, where everything went to hell, back before the War of the Ancients, with Malfurion and Illidan's roles reversed, and the Thunder King invading the Kaldorei. Yeah, there's the Raven Lord and the Gravekeeper storyline. There's several different little storylines going throughout Heroes of the Storm already, and I think this is pretty much full confirmation of something I've been debating for a while, that this is a place where people are either drawn to by an external force, I mean, the Raven Lord and the Gravekeeper are actually a good example of that, or end up as a natural consequence of being within the Blizzard overarching universe. Not necessarily because they're dead, but it is a place that the dead people can absolutely be dragged into. And again, there are actually quite a few examples, hi Saildeer, of dead characters who are in Heroes of the Storm. And again, there's two of them on, well, there's not two of them on the screen right now. There's one of them on the screen right now. Here, now there's two of them on the screen, to make my statement 100% accurate. And I think that's awesome. We've already seen hints of them trying to dip their foot more into lore with this, with Gul'dan and Medivh. I actually mentioned that on a previous Loreweek. And that's interesting because that's our Gul'dan, not Ultimate Gul'dan, who's dead, and Medivh, who's dead. And both of them mention how they have kind of ended up here, and Gul'dan can't wait to draw the power of this new place, and Medivh is going to try and protect this new place. A clear indication that these are the same characters from Warcraft, our Warcraft, who have now ended up in the Nexus and are still aware of it, still aware of their previous selves. Make sense? So again, I don't know if we're going to have a full single-player campaign. That would be awesome. I don't know if we're going to have a real story like Overwatch has been developing. I'm going to talk about that too, don't worry, guys. But I think this is a great step in the right direction. If nothing else, this is some fantastic flavor lore. And my personal headcanon as of right now is kind of what Deutsch mentions, that people are more clearly drawn here, alive or dead, as a result of their circumstance. It also, the easy answer here is that this place doesn't coincide with normal time. In other words, whether you die in year 1, year 15, or year 30, you end up at the same point in the Nexus. So, for example, even though Rhaegar, I'll use a weird example, is in World of Warcraft now, in Legion, is currently alive, and is also in the Nexus, he could die in the future, leading to him coming into the Nexus. Make sense? So, and yeah, Chromie being here would make sense. Who's Farah's dad? It's Reaper! So anyways, I like the idea. I think it's cool. And so from the gameplay perspective and a story perspective, this is awesome. For those of you not aware, they're doing this thing called something I tweeted about. It's the only thing I actually tweeted about. Hang on, let me check something. Yeah, me too, actually. Brave one. I gotta check my own Twitter to see what I tweeted about, because I can't remember what it's called. Nexus Challenge. There's a Nexus Challenge thing that's coming up soon, where if you do a bunch of maps of Overwatch and or Heroes of the Storm, it's like 15 and 30 matches, you get tons of unlocks, and it's awesome. And I like that. So, yeah. And yeah, I actually agree with King Bubble's comment. Even from an out-of-character perspective, it makes sense for some of the character stories to continue, even if in a minor way, within Heroes of the Storm. So, that's cool. The end. I don't have much else to say about Heroes of the Storm. It's awesome. I'm looking forward to everything about it. Let's move on to something else. Now, I may be in threat here, but this is just such a cool video. I have to share it with you. I'm so sorry. Except I'm not sorry at all. Theoretically, yes, Silder, but only certain ones, after all. Although that does kind of open the door for them, characters to put in. I'm ahead.
I thought this was supposed to be the most advanced security system on the planet.
We don't have all day. Hurry up.
Enough. Do you have satellite?
Of course.
Boop.
Are you certain the target is on site? Oh, she's here, all right.
Okay, you're in.
I cannot wait until the inspection is over.
You want to see sass.
The door. Sombra.
It takes a lot of sass to sass Reaper, let's be honest. I'm gonna turn this up.
I am in position. Sombra, time to target.
Incoming, right now.
Chairman Bolskaya, the new guidance systems. They will be the difference in destroying the hated...
As you know,
Tell me we're still on schedule.
I like this trailer, but I'm still gonna point out the stupidity. As you know. Notice the obvious parallel to
in a decade.
the Russian character's gun. I can't
This
think of her
will
name.
ensure the future of Russia. Just a little
Blizzard's at the top, Venters. Easily.
further.
Let's move! Widowmaker, hold the perimeter. We'll take over.
Zarya, thank you. That's her frickin' name. And the shield thing. You know what I love about this? I'll share it later. I'll share it later.
Sombra, I'm cut off. It's on you now.
I'm all over it.
I love this song right here.
She's getting away.
This is great for two reasons. 3 reasons, actually.
All mechs, fire on catwalk, level 3!
Sombra, status.
I'm working on it.
Hands up. How many of you noticed that was a hand before it gripped her?
Look at you go! Find her!
Katia Volskaya. You have no idea what it took for me to make this meeting happen. Relájate, I'm not going to kill you. I mean, I'm the one that set off the alarm.
Sombra, do you have the target?
Okay, listen. I'm here to make a friend. And show you something I found. Tell me, what would happen if the people of Russia learned that their defender against the Omnics was actually getting her tech from the enemy? What would that do to the future of Russia? What do you want? The most powerful woman in Russia? I've always wanted a friend like that.
She's cybernetic, Corwin. At least I think she is. It would explain a lot.
I'm thinking, I don't let these images appear on every holovid in the world. And you help out your new friend every now and then. What do you say? Clock's ticking, amiga.
This is great. The eyes
As if I had the
overlapping there.
choice. Now what, friend? I'll be in touch. Boop.
There's the second reason that was awesome.
Mission failed. Target escaped.
Get back to the ship.
Continuing the trend of Overwatch videos, the bad guys win. So, I have a lot to say about this. As ever, Blizzard is amazing. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Sombra's backstory, just in brief. Sombra was actually a very skilled hacker from very young age, and kind of just sort of was a small-time hacker involved in a gang. I forget the name of the gang, it doesn't really matter that much. And more or less accidentally stumbled into a worldwide conspiracy. They, to my knowledge, they haven't actually told us which conspiracy. In so doing, she got the attention of that conspiracy. So she had what is effectively a burn notice, and had to go to ground and hide herself. When she reemerged, it was quite a bit later as Sombra, with the cybernetics, with the tech, all the other stuff. She's Mexican, Mexico, I should say, or at least I think she is. Anyways, so now she got attached to a group that has been very omnipresent, no pun intended, throughout the Overwatch storyline, the Talon Group, which is horrifying in many ways. As I've mentioned, the Talon Group are some of the most evil bastards in the setting. Reaper and Widowmaker are both open members of Talon Group. Widowmaker was someone who was, for example, used to be a normal, ordinary individual who was brainwashed, drugged, and reprogrammed into being a merciless killer who only ever felt emotion when she kills. That's Talon Group. So she gets in with Talon Group, but as we've demonstrated rather clearly, she doesn't have real loyalty to Talon Group. I also have a personal theory that Reaper is also not loyal to Talon Group. He just doesn't give a damn. Talon Group is just incidental to what Reaper actually wants. And yeah, what Raskor says is basically what I just said. Widowmaker is the only person I think who we have 100% confirmation is a member of Talon. So that's Sombra's backstory and character. A couple of things I want to point out with regards to that before we move on from Sombra. She is obviously someone who has a plan of some sort in mind. And the fact that Sombra's real goal with this entire thing was to ingratiate herself with the leader of Russia is horrifying in more ways than one. This is someone who is smart and understands that sometimes brute force doesn't actually get you what you want, but you still need brute force. Let me actually take a step back to really explain this. Overwatch is actually a cape story. It is. These are superheroes. Let's just make it 100% clear. Whether they have cybernetics or superpowers or whatever, the explanation does not actually matter. It's mostly just flavor on top of the fact that these are capes. Let's just get that out in the open. Okay? This is a capes story. I'm getting there, Corwin. Hang on. Now, the thing about most capes is most capes are dumb. Most capes run around with personal power. And personal power is it's something that only exists in fiction because there's no such thing in personal power in real life. Personal power is the ability to literally do. Being a superhero, having superpowers, having magic, being a warrior in World of Warcraft. That is personal power. Your personal individual ability to affect on the world, right? You with me? Political power is something that exists in real life and is a mess that I'm not going to discuss right now, but basically boils down to getting people to listen to you and making sure you listen to people. The interactions between individuals to affect change on a large scale, okay? And of course, political power can go all the way down to the office level and all the way up to the global level. Let's not get into that. So, Sombra, most superheroes in most superhero stories across all of fiction tend to believe that their personal power is all they need. And there's good reason for that. How many times have you seen the story where the supervillain gains superpowers and automatically assumes that they should just be on the top of humanity because now they have personal power? How many times have you seen that? Sombra is doing something I rarely see and something I enjoy immensely. It's actually something that's been present in Primus, too. Sombra understands that political power is still useful, is still powerful. It is still power, after a fashion. And personal power can affect political power. So Sombra has used her personal power to get connected to someone who has no personal power whatsoever, but a tremendous amount of political power. The marriage between political and personal power. It's a storyline I like, especially because I see it so rarely, and it shows how intelligent Sombra is. Now, as I think Corwin mentioned earlier, this is the reason I'm discussing this now is because this gets into Sombra's motives. Being at the top. In other words, being someone who, she has personal power. She demonstrates this in this video, and we see a lot of her movesets in this. But she is using it to affect and influence political power. I have no doubt that she has some longer plans long-term, regardless of just being on the top. And I like that idea. And it makes me automatically more interested in it. Yeah, exactly, Kay. That is a great example of the former. And then, so I paused this for a reason, because the next thing I want to talk about is another marriage of personal and political power.
Do you know why you are here?
Also, that's Yedel from WoW.
I believe I do.
You see how that ties in? Agreed, Necro, absolutely. So, I like how they tie that theme in between both of them. Yeah, no kidding, Grunzo. Now, I want to point out a couple of other things. First of all, her tech seems like magic, but actually makes a lot of sense when you understand that she has cybernetics, that she literally has a computer plugged into her brain. And as a result of having that computer plugged into her brain, like, her hand gestures... I destroyed it, Penguin. Let me put it to you in this way. Magneto doesn't need to do this in order to use his powers. He does that because it helps his mind influence the powers, but the powers are coming from up here. He doesn't have to do the arm gestures. That's unrelated to his powers, okay? She doesn't need to do this in order to make her powers happen. It's something that's happening through the process of her brain, and this is just how she's interacting with it and how she's decided to start representing it. And she shows this very clearly several points in this.
Supposed to be the most advanced security system on the planet.
We don't have all day. Hurry up.
Enough. Do you have satellite?
Of course.
Now, I could comment on the amazing overall presentation of this in general, and it is amazing. There's some absolutely phenomenal directing going on here. Yeah, exactly. It's like the Force. It's like people who do this when they're talking. I actually talked about this yesterday, about my little floss that I just play with. It helps me to keep going. That's the first thing I wanted to comment on. The second thing I wanted to comment on, and I know this is something that isn't often commented on, but this is unrelated to Sombra at all. So I just want you to pay attention to the sequence of events, okay? Are we there yet? Okay, right about here. So this giant, awesome Doom mech of Doom smashes Reaper into the ground. Look at that thing!
Sombra, I'm cut off. It's on you now.
I'm all over it.
Then the awesome music plays. But the awesome music is not what I wanted to show you. What I wanted to show you is this. Hang on, not yet.
Mission failed. Target escaped.
Get back to the ship.
That is an excellent example right there of negative character development. In other words, giant freaking mech versus an injured Reaper, and Reaper destroys the hell out of it. We don't see the fight, but it helps to emphasize the kind of person Reaper is. Reaper, in my personal opinion, of the various characters of Overwatch, is probably the single most personally powerful individual in Overwatch. He is a beast. He's basically the XR Kun of Overwatch in terms of just personal, raw power. And I love how they demonstrate that in such a quiet way. You just see the wrecked ruins. The camera doesn't even focus on it. You just see the ruins of that giant mech in the background as he has finished it off. I mentioned earlier that there were 3 reasons why this was cool. Is it right here? No, it's before this. This right here. Agreed, Dakota. So she drops the thing. Like I said, this is awesome for 3 reasons. Reason number 1, there's just the obvious joke factor. Oh, it didn't do anything. Nice little moment of amusement in the middle of the action scene. Moment number 2, she did that as a literal... That was a tactic. That was a distraction tactic. If I can segue for just a second. I used to do a lot of PvPing in World of Warcraft back in vanilla. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. I was part of a team, which made it a lot more fun because I was playing with friends and people I knew. And we would go prefab stuff rather than pug stuff. We would do Warsong Gulch. I was a paladin. You know what my job was? You know what I was really good at? Distracting people. I would rush up into the middle of the fray while our team is coordinating over here and going back up here, and I would be right here in the middle shouting in /yell, "I'm a distraction!" This is not a joke. Now, of course, they can't understand me. I'm speaking Common, they're speaking Orcish. But the point is, I'm running out there yelling at them, and you would not believe how many people would charge after me rather than anyone who's actually doing their job. Now, I was actually performing a function for the team. I was tanking, effectively. But the point is, it was a distraction. It was a nice, big, obvious, hey, look at me. And that's exactly what she did here, because that works. Next point, and indeed the third reason, this is good for a directing reason and for a gameplay reason, because it actually shows what the actual point of that thing was, which is the recall ability. Very awesome presentation of that. A great way to show not only her abilities in the game, but also her showcase her mentality and the way she thinks. This is cool. Her just reprogramming the hand as she's falling into it. It's just very cool. And a good demonstration of what manipulation can do. A manipulative tactical power. Now, of course, then there's this scene. We all knew she wasn't going to kill her. I assumed this was going into the shall we say, cliched route and have someone stop her at the last minute. I was actually expecting it to be Zarya. No, it was actually she never wanted to kill her in the beginning with, which really helped flesh her out for me. But I want to talk about 2 things about this. This is probably my favorite Overwatch short, even though it's not the most emotional. There's a couple of Overwatch shorts that, I'm not ashamed to say, actually make me cry. This, however, this is interesting. And you know why? 2 big reasons. Number 1, the leader of Russia is exchanging tech with the Omnics. Now, I don't know how much you know about the lore of Overwatch, but that's a big freaking deal. And there's a lot of action. That's true, Raskar. I'll agree with that. This is a big, big freaking deal. And this is horrifying. But a question immediately arises in my mind. What's she giving away to get that tech? Because that's what trade is. I give you, you give me. That's true, Malleus. I hadn't thought about that. Good point. So, again, why? Or what? Excuse me. What? What is Russia giving away? What is this woman giving away to get this tech? Now, the Russian woman's personality and perspective, that makes perfect sense to me. It's something we actually have talked about very recently when we were talking about when we were talking about Infinite Warfare. I don't want to spoil Infinite Warfare for anybody who didn't actually watch that, but I would say that this is a bit of survivalist mentality. Are you the captain? Are you willing to make the hard decision? This is a woman who is willing to do whatever is necessary in order to ensure the prosperity of Russia. I agree with that spirit. Absolutely. That's why I called him the Exar Kun. Yeah, for those of you not aware, in the backstory, Russia was one of the only nations that pretty much fought off the Omnics by themselves. We never found out how or why, though. Oh yeah, space is a vacuum. Yeah, will you we actually, that's right, we had that problem in Stellaris just yesterday. Will you sacrifice a population to gain blah? And that's another good question that Raskor brings up. Was this during the first Omnic Crisis or the recent Omnic Crisis? So my point is, this is a big plot point right here. This is a huge plot point, and this will... this is something that needs to be... Where did you get that information from, Golvag? This is something that needs to be analyzed in absolute full. It is also interesting to note that this woman who is... So if Golvag is correct, that she is guaranteeing deflection of attack on Omnics, that means she is betraying the Omnics, because she is using this tech from them to make anti-Omnic weaponry. Or worse, she's using this anti-Omnic tech in order to make a weapon to go after the rest of the world. There's a lot of possibilities here, though. This is all speculation, but that's my point. This is a big... This is basically a new puzzle. Like, we thought the puzzle was here, and now that there's actually a puzzle piece that we found up here, and now there's a lot that can be inferred from this. Oh, okay, so you're speculating. Gotcha, Golvag. I was going to say, if that's true, holy hell. Yeah, the United States and Mexico got destroyed by the war. They're not the only places. Germany had issues, too. If this woman was in Star Wars, that's a good question. I don't actually know. And yeah, as Bragwin points out, a lot of the speculation we all just tossed out would all qualify as the future of Russia, wouldn't it? So, a lot of possibilities here. A lot of possibilities here. That's something I was thinking as well, King Bubble. I'm not actually sure. I had a second point. That was the big point. I'm trying to think of what my second point was. Oh yeah, obvious, very blatant, yet very well done symbolism here. We've got the Russians on the left, the Omnics on the right, and look who just happens to be sitting in the middle there. I do love... I know I already pointed out, but I do love the shot of her...
Woman in images appear as if I had...
I love the shot of the eyes of the older woman overtaking the eyes of the younger. That's a really nice thing. I don't know if that's a picture of her as a child or of her daughter. Both work for the same purpose. Both accomplish the same goal, directorially speaking. Agreed, Corwin. Oh, I remember the second point. You ready for the second point? Because this is a really big one. This is, if I'm not mistaken, the first short. Please correct me if I'm wrong. This is the first short that occurs in the present. Almost every other previous short we've seen has occurred in the past, has been a lead-up to Overwatch's story beginning, with Winston, and with Tracer, and technically with Widowmaker, I can't think of his name, I'll say Soldier 97 or whatever. Every single one of them has been previous to now. This is something happening now. The story is finally moving forward. This is actually happening in the present, and that adds even more weight to it. And yeah, I think you're right. I think it's her daughter. But, yeah. 76, thank you. Sorry, I forgot the number. The Doomfist one, that's extremely debatable when that happened to Koida. Especially since it was designed back when they didn't really have a story to Overwatch. But either way, I really like this. I really like where this is going, and that's awesome. Do I have anything else to share? Reaper, of course, is pissed off. I love this, by the way, the background of what I'm going to presume is Moscow back there. It's a nice touch. It could not be Moscow. I don't know. It's a Russian city, but it's cool looking. And, of course, Zarya. This is also, if I'm not mistaken, the first time Zarya's made any story presence. Obviously, you know, she's been in the game since vanilla, but yeah. I'm not sure, Corwin. I think it's absolutely a possibility, yes. I have no idea what happened to Canada. I gotta look it up. Give me a moment. Literally, Corwin. I have no idea what happened to Canada. They were wiped out of existence. I really don't know. I can't recall any mention of Canada. Zarya, yeah, I agree. Zarya is at the very least in the running for just in terms of raw strength, raw output, up there with Reaper, in my opinion. Yes, I do, Necro. I'm not sure they're going to do that, and in fact, I absolutely think they won't, but I do think it is possible. Yeah, McCree, there's actually a lot of characters that haven't really slid into the story yet, and I'm very looking forward to seeing that presented. Also, this is a very minor note, and I bet nobody noticed this, but you see the guy on the left there? He's bandaged, he's injured, he's one of the soldiers who was here earlier. I only point that out because it kind of emphasizes that so many of her guard were injured and yet are still present. It's basically just a very small visual indication of the fact that this is very shortly after the attack, and therefore this is something that the president is taking, or the chairman or whatever, is taking very, very seriously, and of course, showcasing the wound that Sombra has left on them. It's a nice touch. Yes, Malachor, sorry. I registered your question earlier, I just forgot to answer it. Yeah, in terms of physical strength, that's not relevant. Yeah, no kidding. Anyways, so that's all I've got for Overwatch. Some cool stuff. Actually, I've got a couple other things for Overwatch. Give me just a second. At least I think I do. Maybe I don't. No, I do. Okay, so... more tech to help the tournament. Oh yeah, so Blizzard is actually introducing a league. They're making their own and forcing their own professional sports league, and they're basically just bypassing all of the other esports thing, NFL, NBA, the CNN thing, whose name I can't even think of right now. They're bypassing all of it and just making their own freaking league, the Overwatch League. It's interesting that they're doing that for Overwatch first, but it makes a lot of sense. It has very much exploded and has the population to do that. So the inaugural Overwatch League will actually start next year. They've been working on this for a while. There will actually be, salaries and all those things that would come from being a professional sports league. This means a lot, and yet at the same time can be very interesting. I have seen a lot of people bitch and whine and moan, a lot of screaming and ranting about this thing, and I'm not sure what to make of that. There are certainly some negative consequences that could come as a result of this, regarding education and kids trying to be more skilled at a sport than they are in actual functional member of society, but those exact same arguments can be levied at every other professional sport that exists ever. Yeah, exactly, Corwin. And Blizzard has the financial backing to push their own league, whereas League of Legends may or may not. I don't actually know if that's true, but I know Blizzard does. It's a great idea, in my opinion. I think it's a great push forward for esports. I'm one of those people who's actually been a supporter of esports for quite a while. And the very idea, the in my opinion, ridiculous notion that esports are not a real sport is, as I just said, ridiculous, since there is a fairly large amount of skill and effort involved in actually being the best. Yeah, exactly, Roximus. That's why I'm like that. I feel that's an invalid concern here, in this case at least. Yeah, I don't know what else to add to that. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a step forward. I don't know who will be the next. That's really the only question for me. Who will be the next company to try and push forward a professional esports league separate from the existing CNN stuff and all that fun stuff. So that's cool. What else we got? There is definitely more PvE content like Junkenstein's Revenge in the future. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. I'm just going to raise my eyebrow at you, Goldvag. Let's see here. They are currently... They do want to make each hero have their own separate animated short, but at the moment they're moving from 1 through time. I agree with that, by the way. I do think they absolutely should do that. There's no reason to rush them. They should use their usual Blizzard polish to make each short amazing, and so far they have done that. They do want to do something with Mercy soon. Looking forward to that. Of course it does, Necro. But it could also be a way to paperclip those two into the same league, basically. Once you have the functional framework for a league, Necro, you can add other games to it. Agreed, Machina. What was I saying? A bunch of balance stuff that I'm not going to share. I just have notes from BlizzCon here. I've got hundreds of them. Adding environmental effects for fun, which actually sounds kind of cool to me. Blah, 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 blah. They're going to be implementing new tech under the hood to help tournaments function, which is awesome. No, Corwin, what I mean by that is a League of Overwatch has nothing to do with the development of Overwatch. It doesn't. It's a totally separate group with totally separate people working on a totally separate function. That's like saying the people who are designing... I know this is a bad parallel, but the people who designed the rules of football are the same people who push force the NFL. That's completely separate groups. My point is that the people who are pushing this forward to make this league could eventually turn it into a Blizzard league and add StarCraft 2 and Higher the Storm under the administration once they have the framework in place. Make sense? Sure, Zoan. That's why it's not called a real sport. It's called an esport. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that argument at all. And actually, Lurker has a good counterpoint. Chess is very much a sport. No, I haven't, Malaeus. I don't actually have it downloaded. What are you linking me, King Bubble? Something that isn't loading. Ah! The Russian Esports Federation. I don't actually have anything else to share about Overwatch, it looks like. So that's cool. Overwatch stuff is awesome. Next thing on the list for me is Hearthstone. Now, as weird as this sounds, I don't have that much to share about Hearthstone, except I'm going to basically be repeating myself here, because Hearthstone is kind of doing the exact same thing that Heroes of the Storm is doing, and I like it. You're terrible, Darkrai. Hearthstone is pushing boundaries, is trying to do new stuff with the typical Magic the Gathering style CCG format, and I like that. I think the Brawl is a great move in that direction. It has been a great move. There have been some very, very awesome brawls. There's been some fun brawls. There have been some brawls I don't like. But overall, a very good push forward. They're going to continue doing that. They're going to push forward to that. There's going to be some new arena stuff that's going to be coming out in the future, which I like the idea of in general. I do like the concept of arena. They're trying out some different variances with regards to attached rules. If this, then this. What am I ignoring, Krenzer? Scroll up, scroll up, scroll up, scroll up, scroll up, scroll up, scroll up. What has Mercy done besides the thing to Reaper and repairing Genji? I don't remember the whole list. A lot of stuff. She's responsible for a lot of stuff. You're gonna make me look this up. Damn it, Krenzer. Hang on. We're talking about Hearthstone now. We moved on. No, hang on. Okay, so scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. I gotta find the list because I didn't remember. Yeah, I saw that Permeus. I just didn't really think it was noteworthy. Blah, 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 blah. I know she did something with Soldier 67. The reason I called her evil, although I did it kind of jokingly, I'll just go ahead and answer that, because I can answer that without having to look up the specific things that she's actually done, is that she reminds me of Paramedic from Metal Gear Solid 3 and the Metal Gear Solid series in general. In other words, she just does not care. I don't... What are you linking me, Corwin? In other words, she does not, ethics and morality are not part of the equation. It's only what she can accomplish as part of the equation. Now, that is admittedly something that is a presumption on my part, because all we know is her actions and the results of those actions. But until we have an actual Mercy short or more Mercy story, then I don't actually know where that's going to go with that. Now, it is also worth noting that when I say don't care, I'm using the wrong term. I'm trying to think of a better way to put that. Give me just a moment. She's a Cisco. She's not a Justice Lord. She does not do things and then assume that it is the right thing to do and automatically just throw it away. She does things knowing that they're bad and nevertheless pushing forward for her own various reasons. There. I think that's a more nuanced way to put that. Back to Hearthstone. Where's my notes on Hearthstone? Here we go. Okay, so Hearthstone. They're not adding new classes, which is awesome. They're doing a few other things with that. The win range is actually really funny. You're terrible, Corwin. Hearthstone is, of course, expanding like crazy. They're going to do more cosmetic stuff. Don't actually care about that. Mean Streets of Gadgetzan is, of course, the new expansion that's been announced. And, hi, Fearsome. We have gone through Heroes of the Storm of Overwatch, and we're talking about Hearthstone right now. I like the idea of multi-class things. See around Penguin. It's actually something that we've already seen in CCGs, because Magic the Gathering has multicolor cards. This is actually a fairly old idea, you know, a red-black, or a white-green, or whatever. That's a fairly commonplace idea and thing. So that's not really new, but it's still something I like, and I like the way that they're presenting it. I like the fact that it'll actually allow you to, for example, as a warlock, cast a priest card. That's cool. I like that. I don't actually have much else to share about that. The expansion, and I quote, has less random cards because they want it to feel different from one another, and that's interesting, and I actually think that's a good thing. Lord knows the most recent Old Gods expansion had a lot of random in it, but that makes sense. It's the Old God, you know, chaos, insanity. So they're trying to make more co-op stuff and make it easier to play with your friends. Awesome. Improved interface for co-op, which is awesome. I've actually had issues with co-op in Hearthstone recently. They want to make more heroic bosses for the future. That's also awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Oh, lurker. Let's see here. They're thinking about making a way in the actual game. I don't have anything. Oh no, I haven't talked about WoW yet. I'm saving WoW for last. They're making it a way to make it so that basically you can, rather than building a deck in one of the external sites like Hearthstone or whatever, you can actually go and just export a sequel or whatever, and from the game itself, and it'll be like, this is your deck, and I like that idea. That's cool. They're definitely doing more with brawls and heroic brawls. Absolutely awesome. They had something mentioned. I'm trying to find the specific note, but there was something where they wanted to do more co-op stuff. I kind of already mentioned that in brief, but they specifically mentioned something that was effectively two-headed giant. For those of you not aware of what that means, two-headed giant is where two Magic the Gathering players are sitting here at the thing, and either they're playing one deck or two decks. It depends on the specific rules that you're using. But basically, you have one health pool, and you're playing against two other players who have one health pool, and you share one line, and they share one line. Basically, it is in all ways a two-headed or a cooperative mode of play, and I like that. It's actually one of my favorite aspects of Magic the Gathering. I love doing two-headed giant in Magic the Gathering, so I'm looking forward to that in Hearthstone. I think that would be really awesome, and I'd be more inclined to start adding Hearthstone more into the rotation for Blizzard Sundays if we actually have the co-op mode in two-headed giant thing. What else we got here? Expanding Hearthstone lore with short stories. I shouldn't have to explain why I'm in favor of lore. They're going to use more discover mechanics in the future. I'm not sure what I think about that, because that's more random, but I do actually like a little bit of random, so I'm not sure what I think about that personally. They're still working on tournament systems. I don't actually know if Hearthstone has a tournament system built in yet. I know they're working on one, and they've talked extensively about how they're implementing it, but either it is now or will soon be, there will be a tournament system built into the game, similar to how StarCraft 2 already has one, and Overwatch is getting one as well. Yes, I saw those Malays. I was actually reading those as they were coming out, which is funny because several of my friends were predicting what the new expansion would be based on this Gadgetzan stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. It couldn't possibly be Gadgetzan. We've already had the mechs thing. Well, apparently it is the Gadgetzan. Go figure. I was completely wrong. I agree. Discover is better than total randomness. That's why I say I kind of like the idea, because Discover is partial random as opposed to mega random. I think that's actually all I have to share about Hearthstone. Some cool stuff. Let me double check here in my notes. Page 3 to 8 obituaries. I loved that. They showed off a few cards. I'm not going to go over those. Oh, here we go. One more thing here really quick with the Gadgetzan release thing. Blah, 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 blah. Bunch of new cards. They look cool. I will probably be doing the Lotus. thing. And I thought there was one other tidbit to share. No, I guess that's it. Okay, so that's it. Moving on. Let's talk about Diablo 3. Actually, let's talk about StarCraft 2, because I actually have almost nothing to share about StarCraft 2. The only news bit that I actually saw about StarCraft 2 with regards to BlizzCon was the fact that they're going to be... I mean, obviously, the new Nova missions are coming out soon, and they're releasing the information of the API or whatever about StarCraft 2 in order for people to make... to help develop AIs for it. I'm not sure what I have to say about that, other than the fact that it's interesting that they're doing that. It is something that I like, because one thing that's been true for some time, basically since about Warcraft 3 at the very latest, is that Blizzard's been supportive of the idea of better AI. Not AI as in the Matrix or anything like that, but AI as in making good PvE content, making a bot, making a program that can actually be a good opponent. I actually, just last week, was praising this in StarCraft 2 with regards to the fact that there's so much customization in what you want your AI to be as far as the opponent. And I like that. And a lot of it is smart. It's actually the AI being smarter and more careful and more efficient, rather than just the cheap way, which is just giving them cheats, you know. So, cool. Unfortunately, I don't actually have anything else to say about StarCraft. Like I said, I didn't see any StarCraft news other than that. Shrug. Moving on. I was hopeful for some StarCraft news, especially since, you know, the last Nova mission's coming out soon. I was hoping for word about a new mission pack or a new expansion or something. Let's talk about Diablo 3. So, Diablo 3 got the big announcements. Stukov? What about Stukov? I'm serious. I didn't see any freaking news. I didn't buy the virtual ticket this year. I didn't have the money. And, yeah. Apparently they're implementing war chests, and part of the price will go to tournaments. That's cool. That's something I'm in favor of. Hold the door, Krensler. Apparently Stukov is being added as a co-op commander. I have heard nothing about this, but I know that they added Nova, and that she's fairly different, and from what I understand, pretty cool. So that's awesome. I'm gonna... Is that it? Just wait here a moment. I suppose I could open up that. StarCraft. There's the co-op preview. There's the AI thing. The deep mind thing, and apparently something about multiplayer, which obviously I don't care about at all. So I guess that really is it. I'll look at it later. Let's talk about Diablo 3, because I actually have a lot to talk about with Diablo 3. Leading up to BlizzCon, one of the things I heard most often was how, and I think I mentioned this. Did I mention this on the stream? I know I mentioned this to several of my friends. They're like, hey, a lot of players have been saying how much they really hope that the big announcement for the anniversary is not a Diablo 3 expansion. They need Diablo 4. They want Diablo 4. Diablo 4 needs to happen. Diablo 3 needs to die, and Diablo 4 needs to come out. Screw Diablo 3. And I just kept hearing that over and 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 over. It drove me crazy. It was all week. It was just this constant, unending spit of hate towards Diablo 3 and this, you know, we need to have a Diablo 4. Now, if you guys have paid attention to me talking about Diablo at all, you know that I have the exact opposite opinion of that, and so do several of my friends. Pax and I have actually discussed this at length. We both agree that while Diablo 3 does and has had its issues, it's a great engine with a great functionality and great mechanics, and there's no need to make a brand new game. They need to make more expansions for Diablo 3. There's no need for a new game when Diablo 3 is fully functional and hasn't aged at all at this point. It still functions just fine just right now. So why reinvent the wheel when there's absolutely no need to? That's my opinion. I also happen to be a big fan of Diablo 3, so whatever. So it turns out, as I was going through the week, I finally saw someone who actually, hey Myron, actually finally gave a reason. I just realized my background's not back up. Hang on a second. Let me pull that back up. Finally gave a reason. It was the first post I'd seen by someone who actually had a viable reason to actually be so hateful and deleterious towards, or degenerative, excuse me, towards Diablo 3. If you give me a moment, I'll even read it to you. Found it. That was quick. You ready for this? Because these are the legitimate reasons. I can't even say that. These are the reasons that were given. This is the first post I saw where someone actually gave a reason why they think Diablo 3 should be destroyed and Diablo 4 made in its place. In Diablo 3, drop rates are too high. Set items are too strong. The itemization sucks. Paragon sucks. Endgame sucks. Gems suck. And the game doesn't feel like a Diablo game anymore. So, drop rates are too high. So you want more grind? Set items are OP. Yeah, they're set items. They've always been OP. Go play Diablo 2 if you don't believe me. A lot of just sucks. So that's just all white noise. That doesn't mean anything because they haven't actually given any information there. And finally, it doesn't feel like a Diablo game. What exactly constitutes feeling like a Diablo game? I'm serious. Honest question. I could give you my answer. It's probably different than several people's. But what do you qualify as a Diablo game? No, that was a direct quote, Lurker. I read it straight from the page. Straight from the post. Each time I paused, there was a comma. What's funny is I've heard so many people complain that Diablo 3 is too cartoony compared to Diablo 2. I don't agree. I'm sorry, I don't. Diablo 1 is not a Diablo game. I'll actually agree with that. You're right, Saldir, I could. Diablo 3 is an online-only game. That is something I disagree with. I've made that point very clear. So, yeah. I don't know about you, but Diablo 3 probably feels like the most Diablo game I've played. In fact, I enjoy it the most of the three. Even though it does have its flaws, the Real Money Auction House was a mistake that they fixed. The original difficulty modes were a mistake, which they fixed. Everything they did regarding the... hell, I could basically list every mistake they made in Diablo 3's vanilla, and it all has been fixed, in my opinion. So what we have is, what is, in my opinion, the best Diablo game by a wide margin. I have never had the desire to go back and replay Diablo 2 since Diablo 3 has come out. I have zero interest in doing that. And obviously I've made my point on Diablo 1 quite clear. I don't think Diablo 1 has actually aged well at all. I think actually it's kind of a crap game, to be blunt, because Diablo 1 is basically just a roguelike with a few trappings of story on top of it. Diablo 2 added a little bit more to the roguelike variety, made it a little more interesting, but a little more engaging. There's actually several big plot points in Diablo 2 that I found were awesome, and I will never forget, as I'm playing Diablo 2 for the first time with my friend Rob back in whatever year that was, and as I was going through, I remember a certain big plot points came out, and I remember just going like, oh my god! And Rob's like, what? I'm like, but dude, this, and this means that, and that. And he's like, what do you mean? And then I had to explain the story to him. But Diablo 3 does a lot of things quite correctly, in my opinion. Now, I know that's a very unpopular opinion, and that's fine, because Path of Exile is basically Diablo 2.5, as the one just pointed out. I'm going to go ahead and be 100% honest with you guys. I don't like Path of Exile. I have tried it twice. I have given two rather large attempts at enjoying Pathfinder, or Path of Exile, excuse me. Played it with friends, and played it by myself on the stream. Actually, I guess I've tried it 3 times. Excuse me, I forgot about that. And each time, it's just completely lost me. I am utterly disengaged from the game and don't enjoy it at all. That's just my opinion. I'm not trying to bash the game. I'm not trying to say it's actually bad. I'm not trying to say that anybody else who dislikes it is bad. That's stupid. I don't agree with that opinion. Please don't put words in my mouth. For me, Diablo 3 is something that's a lot of fun. I actually feel like I'm doing something really fun in Diablo 3. I actually feel like the grind has been pulled out of Diablo 3 significantly. I feel like Diablo 3 has a more engaging story. I don't hate Pathfinder, it's just not my thing. But yeah, for me, regardless of opinions on D3, that's not the point. That's not the point. The point of what I'm trying to get across here is that it is, in my opinion, in every way, my personal opinion, my professional opinion, as someone who's played video games for a living and dissects them for a living, my economic opinion, which I would also qualify as a professional opinion, and I'd say go ahead with a marketing opinion as well. I think for all 4 reasons, and I guess a development opinion as well, for all 5 reasons, I think it would be a huge mistake to release Diablo 4 right now. I think that would be terrible. I think that would be a huge mistake at this point. And again, for all 5 reasons. Now, this is all kind of a lead-up to something else, which is the fact that we're not getting a Diablo 3 expansion or Diablo 4. Gotta admit, I didn't call that. I really didn't. We're getting some weird stuff. So let's talk about what we're actually getting with Diablo 3. Let's get into facts now, rather than opinions. So what we are getting is the anniversary thing, which by all accounts, and I haven't been able to 100% confirm this, but I've seen several people repeat this, who actually were present at Blizzcon, that we'll be getting it basically once a year, every year, right around the actual anniversary, which will be about this point of the year, where we'll be able to go back and play Diablo 1 in Diablo 3. Now, for those who don't know what that means, basically think going to the sweet, happy, cartoony farmland rainbow world. It's the same engine, in other words. You're still playing Diablo 3, you just go into this separate portal, and now you're back in Diablo 1. You go through all 16 levels, you know, the major bosses are there, there will be cosmetic rewards for doing it, there will be titles and stuff you can get for doing it, and of course it'll just be a nice romp through that. Now, that being said, when he first announced this, I made the statement to PAX. I was talking with PAX Live during the announcement. Called it. In truth, that was preemptive because that's actually not true. I didn't call it. What I was presuming was they were finally doing something that I had been hoping for years at this point, beginning proper remakes of the old Blizzard games, which is something I have been hugely pushing in the hopes of it coming out. And just desperate desire for there to be a proper remake of Diablo 1, Diablo 2, Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, StarCraft, StarCraft Brood War. I have been absolutely desirous of these things for many years. And especially since things have been happening lately to indicate the possibility of that coming to pass. For example, they have finally started codifying a lot of the lore, both in StarCraft and in Warcraft. They went back, and so quite a few things within Warcraft 1 could actually show the story of how things actually happened, whereas if you play Warcraft 1 right now, it'll actually be wrong in several cases, in addition to being a badly aged game that's kind of terrible. So I do think that's awesome, and that's rather, I'm sorry, I think that would be awesome. It is not awesome because it isn't happening. I was really disappointed by that. Yeah, that's basically, I'm with you on that one, Necro. That being said, it is nice that they're doing this little nod to Diablo 1. We'll have to see it in action. It's not out yet to my knowledge. I suppose I could pop in really quick just to check, but I'm like 90% certain that it's not in yet. They're going to be doing, so there's the other big thing, of course, which is the Necromancer. This was actually leaked. Really, Permeus? Do you mind quoting word for word so I can understand? Because that's a damn shame. And that means I need to take over Blizzard too, guys. God damn it, I keep having to take over so many freaking companies because they're stupid. I don't want to be in charge of your company. I just want you to not be stupid. What? I love Blizzard games, and they're an auto-buy for me, but that doesn't mean I lick their boots. They do a lot of really dumb things that I disagree with. Moving on. So we're getting the Necromancer, which is not coming out until next year. It's going to be the Necromancer pack. They keep calling it that, but near as I can tell, it's basically just to be a couple cosmetic items. Oh, and you get to play this new class. Now, the new class looks awesome. It does look a little bit too based on the Necromancer in Diablo 2. What I mean by that is, while I don't dislike the Necromancer in Diablo 2, and in fact that is my main back in Diablo 2 was the Necromancer, if I wanted to go play that, I could go play D2. I would like some advancement of the character. Now, they are doing a few things about this, and they've revealed some information regarding, for example, the fact that you could, use his corpse as a resource for certain abilities and blah, blah, blah. And there's a bunch of stuff about that. The pets being similar to the mantras is something I like. In other words, they're always out in passive, but then you can hit the ability and do a special thing. Stuff like that. There are multiple pronunciations for it. Look up Shalomance or Schoolomancy sometimes out there. Yes, but it can be pronounced necromancer or necromancer. Both are accurate to my knowledge. Same with Diablo and Diablo. Anyways, so it does look cool. Everything I've seen about the gameplay footage of the Necromancer does actually look cool. I am very likely to pick up that pack, especially if it's a reasonable price. We'll see. What I think is this is them dipping their toes into the water. I think this is actually them trying to decide if releasing new characters to play as for money is a feasible financial model going forward. Now, I think that's interesting for two reasons, because number one, it implies to me that they are actually... they don't know what to do with the story. Like, they don't actually know where to go with the story. And it does kind of emphasize that idea to me. And that does make a degree of sense, since the only logical way for the story to go now is one of two directions. Either A, the ability to go and have this big epic fight against heaven and destroy heaven, leading to the end of the setting or the end, some big apocalypse. Or B, we basically start being the bad guys and we play as the bad guys as we destroy the world in some big apocalypse, which if you notice, these are kind of similar ideas. There's a lot of hints in Reaper of Souls that we are the villains, and we're becoming the villains. So in other words, the idea here is one of these... maybe they don't know where they're going with the story. Maybe that's why there's no expansion even announced yet or planned or whatever. Maybe they're working on one. I don't know. But that being said, if they come out with new characters that are fun to play... And I really want to emphasize that point, because when they came out with the Crusader, that was awesome. I really liked Crusader's gameplay. It really added to my enjoyment of the game. Even going back through the previous acts was still fun, playing it as this new class. Make sense? Okay, gotcha, Permeus. That really sucks. So I do very much want the idea... I do very much want... I like the idea of them continuing to come out with new classes as long as they're fun to play. And I like I said, I will probably be buying the Necromancer. What I find really interesting about this is we have to pay for the new class, but not the new content. So we've got the Diablo 1 thing, and that's just free. We get that. I don't know when it's coming out. Near as I can tell, it's not out yet. I didn't see anything about it being out yet. I guess I could just pop into the game really quick. SSD and all that. But regardless, I love the idea of the fact that we can go to the Diablo 1 thing. I'm looking forward to that. I do like the fact that we'll be able to get 2 new zones. I hope there will be story there and not just variety of context, because we did get that 1 new zone in a patch in Reaper of Souls, and it did have an extremely small amount of lore and story to it, but it was still there. That was something that was interesting about it. But I don't know. Yes, that's great. I know there's a new season. I'm kind of behind in my seasons. I need to delete this character, actually, because I never got to do the new season stuff. Let me switch to a character who's actually high level. We'll hop in my wizard. She's my best. And we'll just pop into the game really quick. I think that's an interesting model, giving away free content updates while paying for new characters. I think that what I honestly think is that they're testing the waters with this. Wait, I'm sorry, what, Magister? Hi, Zed. Hi, Rosilia. Looks like there's nothing at all indicating anything regarding the possibility of Diablo 1 being in it. I don't think it's going to be... I don't think it's in yet. I haven't heard anything about it being in yet. I thought it was going to be on the PTR soon, and that's about it. Let me go and give my opinion on something, and I know this is going to make me very unpopular, but that... I mean, I've already pissed off a lot of people today, so why not? Hack and slash StarCraft game and RTS Diablo game. Sure, why not? Can we make a 4X StarCraft game while we're at it? Because that would be awesome. How about a grand strategy Warcraft game? There's a lot of politics in Warcraft. Think about it. I would love that. Yeah, I agreed, King Bubble. I do like that model. I do think it's something that could work. It would rely on people buying the things that actually take money. To my knowledge, no, Golvag. to both questions. Or rather to the former question. The latter question is complicated, but basically no to what you're asking. I was saying something. Diablo 3. I was going to say something about Diablo 3. Right. I get the end game focus on Diablo 3, and I like that. I do. I like adventure mode. I like the bounties. I like the greater rifts. I have fun with it. I have had fun with it. I like the season stuff. No, I didn't, so on. That's kind of cool. But if I could be completely blunt, it is my opinion that they should continue to do story patches or purchasable things. Like the Nova missions. The Nova missions for Diablo 3. Now, I don't mean literally. What I mean is, let me drop $15 to get more story, more campaign, more missions. Let me actually progress through developer-generated content rather than this repeatable stuff. It's not like I dislike the endgame stuff of Diablo 3. I actually do enjoy it, as I just emphasized. But I want more meat. This is something I would really, really enjoy in Diablo 3. And we'll see what they're doing with these two new zones they're adding. Because, to my knowledge, we don't have any real information on what these two zones are going to be. It's just that, hey, we're adding two new zones. That could be purely cosmetic. It could be a place where you go and you get your new cube, and that's the end of it. I mean, they've already done that. So, I don't really have much information on that. I can't really comment on it. I've been talking for over an hour about BlizzCon. And I haven't even gotten to WoW yet. Excuse me. Let's move on to WoW. Let's get some Warcraft music going. I just completely spaced. The music's off. Let's talk about Warcraft. I have a bajillion things to talk about WoW. I really do. Okay. First of all, God, I don't even know where to start with. First of all, actually, I really don't. Where do I begin with the WoW stuff? There's a lot of WoW news. There's actually more WoW news than everything else news. Oh, hey, here we go. The new Diablo patch is hitting the PTR this week now, so we'll be able to find out what they're doing with that this week. Anyways, yes, but story, Necro? Information? Meat? Or is it just cosmetic? My question has not been answered, to my knowledge. Granted, like I said, I didn't actually have the BlizzCon ticket, so I didn't say myself. Anyways, so they've already got planned patch 7.1.5, 7.2, and 7.2.5. This is part of their new method of doing patches in WoW, which is here's a new patch, and then here's a new patch, and here's a patch. Parceling out smaller patches with content in them that appeals to as many people as possible in order to keep people playing, which in my opinion is something they should have been doing all along. You know, instead of this whole let's make a new expansion every year, which was a mistake in my opinion. So bunch of news. Let's just go down the list. Patch 7.1.5, which will be the next patch. It'll be a small patch. It'll contain some new systems and stuff like that. It will add Mists of Pandaria time walking, something I both predicted and I'm looking forward to. 6 dungeons. I don't believe they said which 6 dungeons. They will not be doing time walking for Warlords anytime soon. No surprise. They're bringing back the Brawlers Guild. And adding something new to the Brawlers Guild. So I actually like the Brawlers Guild, but I've always been disappointed at how gear required it is. Every time the Brawlers Guild has come out, I've basically been able to get to a certain point, and I've run into a gear wall, and I just can't go any further than that. Clunk. So I enjoy the Brawlers Guild, it's just I've never maxed it out, because I'm not the kind of person who does high-end raids to get the high-end gear, blah, blah, blah. They're adding something new called Rumbles, which will basically spawn a boss that everyone can fight against rather than just one person, and we can all get rewards for that. That's kind of cool. They're also adding a new currency for the brawls, which you can use on, like, for example, at a graveyard right next to the fight rather than having to run back and forward. A bunch of stuff like that. New rewards from that. They're doing something new called Micro Holidays. I'm not sure what I think about these. I do kind of like this. I actually enjoy the holidays in WoW, even though I've kind of finished them, so I don't really do them anymore because I've done everything to do in them. But I do like the idea of micro holidays. No, there was more than 6, Draculos. So the idea is to have basically like a couple of days of a micro holiday where you can just do stuff for fun. They've deliberately said you're not going to get pets or mounts in them, so you don't have to do them. It doesn't feel required to go do the things. And they listed a couple here. Yes, I do, Necro. because there's something else regarding that you have to keep in mind that a lot of the stuff that went into Legion to make this the new golden era. I think that was BattleNet. That was BattleNet. Who the hell? Well, anyways, this new golden era. That's weird. What the hell? Anyways, is something that a lot of the old guard put a lot of their heart and effort into. And apparently... What the hell? Okay. Everyone's freaking out. I'm gonna keep talking. So, micro-holidays. They're adding Encourage Remembrance Day, Volunteer Guard Day, where you can protect the city from attacks, Hatch of the Hippogriffs, where you can get a little baby hippogriff that perches on your shoulder, Boat Day, which is going to be like a spring break thing, you know, stuff like that. So I do like the micro-holidays idea. They're updating some of the arenas, don't care. They're doing this thing, and it says right here that they're making larger changes to classes rather than just number tuning. That's always something that makes me kind of cringe. WoW's balance, as far as classes, has always been pendulum. In other words, oh, we're unbalanced, up, we're unbalanced, up, we're unbalanced, up, we're unbalanced. And, yeah, so we'll see what they do with that. I hope they don't ruin Warriors again. I'm sick of them ruining Warriors. They've already ruined Warriors in Legion. They're looking at talent rows. I do agree with this comment right here. Any talent that 98% of players are taking needs to just be baked into the spec. In other words, it needs to become a default part of the specialization, and they need a new talent in its place. I agree with that completely, and I can give you one example right now. Barrage. Hunters should just have Barrage. Everyone takes Barrage. It is clearly superior to the other options. The only thing that's bad about Barrage is accidental pulls, and if you're smart and actually a good hunter, you can avoid that. And I can prove that. So, yeah. Moving on, looking at secondary stats, a couple other things with that. They're going to add traps back to other hunters. Not sure I agree with that. They're going to do some more stuff with artifact knowledge. And 7.1.5 is actually going to be in the PTR tomorrow, I believe. Tomorrow or Tuesday, one of the two. It's going up soon, in other words. Then patch 7.2, the Tomb of Sargeras. They're going to be continuing the Order Hall campaign. This is something I was very uncertain about. Because there were some theories that the class quests would just stop and would never continue. They are continuing, so that's great. They're adding a new faction regarding the Tomb, new world quest, and this new concept called Class World Quest, which I both like and dislike. I can prove you wrong on that, someone. Back in BC. Although I'm apparently still a pretty good hunter. I'm not sure if I like the idea of class world quests. I know that sounds weird, but one of the things I like most about doing world quests is doing them with friends. So I like being able to go out and do world quests with friends. And if I am a warrior and my friend is a shaman, then yeah, we'll see how that works out. They're doing an Isle of Keldanis kind of a thing in 7.2, where we will go and claim a foothold on the Tomb of Sargeras. One thing they're saying is that we will get to choose different buildings. Now, I don't know how much what that means. I don't know exactly what that means, because we kind of had a choice thing, sort of, in the Isle of Keldanis, if you remember. That was just an order in which we unlock stuff. In this case, it mentions there will be no linear progression, so we will unlock different world quest rewards, vendors, and world bosses based on what we choose. Question, though, is that the server that's choosing, like what the Isle of Keldanis was? Or is that going to be player layered? Because the layering technology, the phasing as they call it, in World of Warcraft has advanced tremendously in Legion, to the point now where I can actually see an enemy and it can layer to my level in addition to me, in addition to this other person. So with the extensive layering tech they have, I could pick something that another person couldn't pick, and so I could get different things than he could. I don't know if that's what they're doing. I suppose we'll find out. They're adding Legion Assaults. I think this is awesome. This is going to be similar to the assaults that happened in the pre-Legion event, which were fun and awesome. I love doing those. They're going to be launching invasions on the Broken Isles. Now, this is cool because they're actually adding to it. Props to Blizzard. Rather than just repeating the old mechanic, they're adding on top of it. Where basically, so the zone is going to attack. World quests are going to go away. New world quests will show up. Those new world quests will count towards the emissary quest, aka the bounties. Once you clear off enough of the forces, it fills up. You can go after the commander. Once you go after the commander, you can actually join, a scenario and actually go and fight them off. And that sounds all kinds of awesome. Also, one thing they mentioned is that there's going to be a different invasion, different content, different actions that are going to happen at different events for each of the zones. Also awesome. So very big positive on that. 7.2 will reintroduce flying to Legion. About freaking time. There will be a new Pathfinder achievement, Part 2 or whatever, which will be, and I quote, no raid or dungeon content required. Big positive. They didn't do that in Warlords. I don't think they should do that here. I actually still need to max out my Nightfallen rep to get to that, but I do like that. As I've said before, I don't mind earning flying in World of Warcraft. I just want it to be something I can earn. So we will finally be able to earn flying. That's cool. Flying will be an account-wide unlock. I also adamantly agree with that. I shouldn't have to do it each time on each character. I should be able to do it once and then be able to reap the benefits on alts, just like I could in previous expansions. Each class is good. No, they actually specifically said they weren't going to talk about it during BlizzCon, so on. Each class will be getting their new, their own mount specific to their class. Some of them look cool, some of them don't. Some of them look amazing. After Nighthold, which is unlocking the beginning of January, if memory serves, they're going to add this whole new raid called Tomb of Sargeras. They've actually mentioned several of the bosses that will be in there, including a... They've added pictures, I'm not going to show you them. There's this infernal pit lord kind of a thing, a new pit lord, a new jailer, the Naga Brute, and an ally of Ashara who's there for some reason. And of course, then there will be the fallen avatar... yeah, pretty much gay. The fallen avatar of Sargeras. Quick lore tidbit, because when I was really excited about that, several of my friends were like, who? So for those of you not aware, the avatar of Sargeras is not Sargeras, or anything really connected to Sargeras per se, so much as a puppet that he designed in order to go pop into Azeroth many years ago and fight Aegwynn. He deliberately drew Aegwynn up to him, and the entire purpose was for Sargeras to then use the death of his avatar in order to possess Aegwynn, in order to then eventually take over Medivh. That was the whole point of that. So that avatar, once Aegwynn defeated him, he put him into the tomb of she put him into the tomb of Sargeras. That's what the tomb of Sargeras is. So the fallen avatar is still in there, and we will be actually fighting it as a boss. It sounds pretty awesome to me. I'm very looking forward to that. And of course, the final boss will be Kil'jaeden. This has generated a surprising amount of ire and bickering, and people being like, "Oh, we're fighting Kil'jaeden again. Blizzard is creatively bankrupt, and we shouldn't be able to kill Kil'jaeden." I've heard so many complaints about this. Yeah, I don't agree with any of those. It is a very logical thing. It's the thing we all saw coming. Kil'jaeden has actually had several aspects and presences. I think so, Nero's, that's just my opinion. Has had a lot of presence in Legion so far. We haven't heard even a peep about Archimonde. I still think Archimonde's permanently dead, but we'll see. Anyways, so we haven't seen anything about... Well, yeah, I mean, we know she defeated him in Northrend. There's even a picture of it. Anyways, I think it is logical for Kil'jaeden to be the actual guy we're going to kill, and I would like to actually freaking kill him this time. This is the time in which we should be able to actually freaking kill Kil'jaeden. I don't know if we're going to, because we're not in the Nether, so we might not, but it does make sense that we go after Kil'jaeden on this one. Some people have complained because he has legs. I think those people are just meme hunters because they're like, ah, Ragnaros had legs, and it was stupid, even though it wasn't, actually. I think Kil'jaeden looks pretty cool, actually, his new appearance. He's, of course, got his typical neck list, so you can identify him. What else? There's going to be a new dungeon. It will actually have normal, heroic, and mythic plus, so it won't just be a mythic dungeon, just like Karazhan is, called the Cathedral of Eternal Night. We'll be using the Aegis, to open it, which is cool. Further story, further dungeons. I am a huge proponent of dungeons being released in patches in WoW. That has been something since vanilla, and most dungeons that are released in patches are awesome. Like, seriously, in my opinion, while there's certainly some good dungeons in the game, usually the mid-expansion patch dungeons are the best. I mean, just to use one example right off the top of my head, Magister's Terrace from BC, the 3 Ice Crown dungeons in Northrend, the 3 Caverns of Time dungeons in Cataclysm. You know, just some thoughts. Anyways, so that's cool. Everyone's, of course, saying Argus will be next. There's a lot of discussion about the Argus thing. I'm actually not going to get into that, though. It's all speculation and based on a few quotes that some people are misquoting and some people are tossing around. I don't want to get into that. Yeah, some people have asked how Karazhan is. I have no idea. We haven't killed the first boss yet. Karazhan is a hell of a gear check, and my guild and myself do not have that much gear. We are just approaching the 860 range for gear, so we do not have the gear to do Karazhan right now. And the second boss is a definitive gear check, and we're not even past the first one, so no idea. They're going to do PvP Brawls. Now, to make this clear, Blizzard has basically decided to brand the name Brawls for their arcade stuff, for all the fun, interesting, pushing the envelope stuff they've been doing. It started in Hearthstone, but they've just been using the term Brawl in other games like Overwatch and in Heroes of the Storm. And now we're going to have Brawls in WoW, which allow you to do different modes of gameplay. It's the same thing, added fun, added gameplay, added pushing the boundaries. I like it. I'm in favor of it. Even though it's just PvP, that's still something that sounds kind of cool. They've already listed a couple of things they're going to be doing. South Shore versus Terran Mill, of course. They're going to add a new mode of Warsong Gulch where you can cap the flag without having to have your own flag. That's going to violently change the way that plays. They're going to have a 15 versus 15 arena. They're going to have Arathi Basin where you can barely see in front of your face and the water's frozen. And an Eye of the Storm with everyone having mounted combat. Cool with it. New relics coming. This is a big news. Artifacts are being expanded. We're getting, where is it? It's like 1 new gold and 3 new regular, I think. Something, or 1 new gold and 2 new regular slots. So we will have new things to put artifact power into and more options to, probably Roxanus, and new ways to expand the artifacts, and that's awesome. Yeah, exactly, Necro. Like I said, people are just quoting and misquoting it, and I don't have anything else to share about that, so whatever. So yeah, the fact that they're expanding artifacts is awesome. I like that. They're also going to be doing more artifact appearances, and they've listed a lot of the new artifact appearances. I'm not going to share all of them. They're cool. I do like quite a few of them. Most notably, there's a few, the mage ones are really awesome. And the warrior ones, of course, are crap, because for some reason Blizzard just hates warriors this expansion. Salt. They're going to be breaking up Karazhan into upper and lower sections, so you can queue as random heroics. So apparently they're adding a heroic mode to Karazhan. They're also going to add queuable ability to do Court of Stars in the Archway. Cool. They're adding new affixes to the Keystone stuff. That's awesome. 7.2 is coming soon, so who knows when. And after 7.2, they're going to Argus. And again, that's like the only bit of news about that. And anyone saying otherwise is misquoting. They've also listed a lot of other information. Yes, I still have more to talk about with regards to WoW, but only one more thing. So first of all, they're going to try to improve crafted gear, but they don't know how. I like that. I like the fact that they're admitting they don't really know what to do with crafted gear. They tried something in Warlords with the expansion, upgrading your crafted gear, and it didn't, and of course limiting how much you could work. And to be frank, I don't think that actually worked. So I like the fact that they're willing to reevaluate that. They're going to be doing some new Connected Realm stuff. They're not letting us play Undead Paladins. That was specifically mentioned. Balancing is hard. Medon is not canon Guardian of Tearsifal. They're adding back the Stranglethorn fishing tournament. They're going to be doing some other things to try and make it a little bit more balanced and a little bit less, based exactly on the exact time, so only certain people get it, kind of a thing. Raytheon is no word other than the fact that he's still out there, but Raytheon is still out there. They're doing a few things to try and change more things to be more alt-friendly. Helmet of the Whale? What? Well, there's whalers on the moon, that's all I know. What else we got here? They're thinking about updating old graphics on some things. They have deliberately said they're not going to go back and update old graphics on armor. I actually like that, even though they've got some lower resolution. The fact is, there's a lot of reason, both nostalgic and otherwise, but just a preference and appearance, that people would want to have the old armor looks. I mean, hell, half of my transmogs are based on BC and Wrath gear, so... Yes, Medon does not exist. Thank God. They're thinking about making WoW tokens being used for other things like character transfer, faction change, and battle.net balance, so being able to use gold to purchase things that are currently purchasable with money. The specific ones were no gnome druids, no gnome shamans, and no gnome paladins is the only other one they mentioned, Grey Wolves, I'm not sure. Yes, but not for the high-end Gears one, only for the stuff you craft while you're raising it. You know, in others, leveling gear. They're still working about the backpack slot thing. I still think the answer to that is so obvious, I'm amazed they haven't done it. Why not just make it a list rather than an inventory? It's ridiculous. What else we got here? Raid Armor in Tomb of Sargeras is going to be inspired on Tier 6. For those of you who don't remember, Tier 6 was Black Temple back in BC. That makes sense. It's something that they've been tossing around internally as well as externally is the idea of making gathering professions not actually count for your profession slot. No word on that, though. Now, this is something that I really, really disagree with. We are going to be giving up our artifact weapons at the end of Legion. That doesn't make sense to me for two big reasons. Story and gameplay. Let's look at the story reason. I have Ashbringer. Ashbringer is arguably one of the strongest, most well-developed, most story-relevant two-handers in the entire setting. But after Legion, I'm just gonna... Yeah, here. I give this up. They say they're gonna have some big story reason for it. I don't care! Why would I abandon the Ashbringer? Why would I let someone else take that? Why would I go and get some random blue from a dungeon in place of that? Why would I not hold on to my artifact? Now, granted, not all the artifacts have that same kind of backing and investure as Ashbringer does, but seriously? None of that is possible, Raskor. I doubt it, but it's possible. Regardless, artifacts will be going away in Legion, at the end of Legion, and that's dumb from a story reason, in my opinion. There's also the fact that I think that the gameplay reason is stupid, because I like the idea of an artifact weapon. I like the idea, gameplay-wise, of a weapon that levels with me. I like the idea of a weapon that it has its own talent tree, that allows me to customize my gameplay, that actually changes how I play my class. My classes... I was talking to Gary about this recently. I am actually still getting used to playing a lot of the specs and classes that are not, you know, my main warrior in Legion, because I'm not used to having the artifact there. Because I got used to the specs back in the Acclamation patch when artifacts weren't a part of the equation. But those artifact abilities change how I play the game. They affect how I play the game. And not just the default ability you get, but the gold abilities you get can fundamentally change your combos, what you do when, your priority. There's a lot of ways that varies up the gameplay, and I like that. Why abandon that? Why get rid of the second talent tree? Why get rid of the variety in gameplay? Why do that? In favor of a green. Yeah, exactly. They've got this whole system, and the artifacts could be easily expanded. There's two ways they could expand artifacts for future expansions. One is the obvious, just add more branches, more talents. They're already doing this in 7.1. They're already adding new abilities and new slots on the talent tree. Second reason, why not have all of the... So here's another option. PAX tossed this out. Why not make it so that all of the current stuff is baked into the default artifact? So the artifact basically just becomes better, and because as if you had leveled it all the way to full, and then completely new talents to change up things, to change up your gameplay in the future. Just saying, both of these would work. Both of these would work. We'll see, Draculus. I haven't heard anything about what they're doing in the future. And of course we wouldn't. I mean, they're not going to do an expansion anytime soon. They haven't even hinted at the new expansion. So, anyways, whatever. We'll see what they do with that, but I am automatically, like, already I am negatively inclined towards that, to the abandoning of artifacts. I think that's dumb. Moving on. A bunch of stuff I'm not going to read. Some talk about Raytheon, which doesn't matter. I like this. One of the specific questions was who are the Naga loyal to? There are many different factions of Naga, and I like that. That's something that's actually, I believe, the first official confirmation of something I have theorized on since like BC, that there are multiple different factions of Naga. And that's relevant because that question keeps coming up for how could we make playable Naga? we play one of the factions that's not aligned with Ashara. Very easy. Yes, Darkrai. I'm almost done. Don't worry. Let's be honest. The last hour or so has just been BlizzCon, Darkrai. Give me a break. So yeah, I do like the fact that they have finally officially confirmed that there's multiple factions in Naga. That offers opportunities. They're trying to do more stuff like the Withered Army training. That's funny because I could actually nitpick the hell out of the Withered Army training. I think there are several major flaws with its execution, but let's not get into that. There are still secrets in the game. Yay. Izera is dead. Good. I was actually upset that certain people survived in the Emerald Nightmare. Vol'jin's story will continue. Now, all I have to say to that is, of course, it will. Vol'jin's a troll. I've said this a dozen times. It's the thing I talked about most during the WoW lore run. Trolls and death have a special relationship, and trolls are awesome. So, yeah, of course Vol'jin's story is going to keep going. They're doing some new animations for hunters and stuff. They're making something called a pet battle dungeon. Not sure what to think of that. Yeah, trolls don't die in the traditional sense, exactly. They talked about the talent stuff. Nothing above Titanforged. Let me quote this one word for word. Cross-faction cooperation questions come up a lot, but they think faction identity is critical to World of Warcraft. They're not happy about two people being barred from playing together by faction, but they feel factions are too critical to bypass. Whatever. I've made my point on that a few thousand times. I don't think I need to make that point again. More backstory on Khadgar. Cool. And then, of course, the argument about no undead paladins. Whatever. Which is funny, because even in the question, it was like, yeah, undead can be priests, but they can't use... I mean... Literally, undead can be priests, but not paladins, because priests use the holy light for preservation of light. Paladins mainly use it offensively, but sometimes for the preservation of life. I like how in the answer they acknowledge that their own reason for undeads not being able to be paladins is actually bullcrap. Sorry. They're going to try and make holidays more level agnostic in the future. I like that. For those who don't know what that means, it's the same thing as the Legion invasions. You could do a Legion invasion at level 10 or level 100 equally. So making holidays doable at level 10 or level 15 or whatever is something I agree with. And that's it. I think that's everything I've got as far as... Well, I mean, there's other BlizzCon stuff they talk about. Wow. But whatever. Regardless, let's not get into it again, Zawan. I think undead should be paladins. Moving on. Let's just move on from that. I've given my opinion on this 1,000 times. People disagree with me. The end. Moving on. So, I noticed Diablo 3 is currently winning the poll. I'm not sure what to make of that. I assume that that means those 26 people would like to play Diablo 3 with me, even though only 3 can. Now, Season 8's up, so we could start a Season 8 thing going on. I mean, that's a thing we could do. Well, that's a good question. What I was going to say is, since Diablo 3 basically won... Let me go ahead and chop off the recording. So those of you on YouTube, goodbye forever.